Imagine wandering through a foggy swamp at dusk when a glowing green light flickers in the distance, beckoning you closer. Is it hope? Is it doom? Welcome to the chilling world of the Will-O-the-Wisps in Vaesen RPG. Before we get into it, I want to thank everyone supporting me over on my Patreon as they allow me to experiment with this new kind of content. And I'm going to start polls this year for patrons, so if there's a specific creature or system that you want to learn more about, head over there and you'll get a say on what I work on next. So what is a Will-O-the-Wisp? The Will-O-the-Wisp is more than just a glowing light in Vaesen. It's a spirit of a deceitful soul, cursed to wander. Will-O-the-Wisps are known to reveal a path or direction. Sometimes that path is leading people into marshes to their doom, but sometimes they can be helpful creatures and lead people back to their way home. This eerie being is both haunting and tragic, often embodying the consequences of greed and betrayal. So let's talk about their appearance. Now this is strictly how this is described in the Vaesen rulebook. The Will-O-the-Wisp appears as a small figure dressed in green or gray, carrying a lantern that emits an unearthly glow. At first glance, it might seem like an innocent guy, but it can be much more sinister than that. So what are their origins? How do these creatures come about? In the Vaesen rulebook, those cursed to become a Will-O-the-Wisp swindled others out of land or property. Now their restless spirits haunt the very places tied to their treachery. This is specific to Swedish folklore, but I can see a lot of great ways to get creative with the Will-O-the-Wisp origins in the game. So I generally chalk it up to someone who has displayed greed by cheating someone in some way. So other examples of this could be a shopkeeper cheated customers by tampering with their scales, charging more for less. Now he haunts the shop and surrounding area. Or maybe it's a priest that collected tithes for charity, but used the funds to amass personal wealth. Now they're bound to the church. Or maybe it's a sibling that manipulated an elderly parent into changing their will, cutting out other family members. And now they haunt the family home. So where does this name come from? Well, the Will-O-the-Wisp is broken down into a couple of different pieces. First we have Will, which is the name of a person, and then we have Wisp, which in Swedish means small lit bundle of tinder. So together this means Will of the Torch or Will with the Torch. So the name implies a person or a spirit seen carrying a flickering light, luring travelers off their paths. Now, when I was doing my research, I also stumbled upon a potential scientific explanation for Will-O-the-Wisps and why they were potentially reported back in the day. One of the most widely accepted scientific explanations for Will-O-the-Wisp is the ignition of gases produced by decomposing organic matter in wetlands, or otherwise known as marsh gas. So how this happens is in marshy or boggy areas, plants and animals decay without sufficient oxygen. This process produces gases such as methane and phosphine. And phosphine in particular is highly flammable and can spontaneously ignite when exposed to oxygen in the air. So it creates a faint flickering flame. The ignition of phosphine may ignite methane, which burns blue. So it sustains the flame and creates the illusion of a glowing, floating light. But of course, if someone tries to scientifically explain away the occurrence to the player characters in the game, they know that it was really the Vaesen that are the cause. So let's talk about their behavior and ecology a little bit. As for behavior, the Will-O-the-Wisps are, above all, tricksters. They revel in luring people onto a different path, but they are not purely evil. Some may guide lost travelers to safety if approached respectfully. Now, as we talked about, these spirits are bound to the land they wrongfully claimed in life. Their presence often twists the environment, turning once thriving areas into cursed marshlands. So next I wanted to dive into the specific powers and abilities of these creatures within the Vaesen game. This isn't just a ghost, it's a magical menace designed to lead adventurers astray. Here are the key powers of the Will-O-the-Wisp in Vaesen. First, a very specific characteristic about this creature is they don't have a physical form, so they cannot be harmed in combat. They also have a very high magic at 10 and a high manipulation at 8. These creatures have the ability to enchant, and in the rulebook, they leave magical powers up to the GM to decide exactly how they manifest. So I came up with a few ideas of how this could come across in your game. First is whispering winds. Strange disembodied whispers fill the air, sounding like cries for help or the voices of loved ones. Swamp mirage, creating an illusion of a safe path and then they get stuck somewhere. Or shifting fog, a thick greenish mist rolls in, reducing visibility to just a few feet and muffling all sound. Or perhaps it's just decaying surroundings. Trees and plants around the players appear to wither and die as they pass. Bark peels, leaves fall, and flowers rot. These creatures also have the magic lantern ability. So the lanterns glow can use the lore curse, and this is an opposed roll of magic versus a player's vigilance. If the creature wins this roll, then it fills the characters with an irresistible urge to follow the light. Victims are often drawn to dangerous places, marshes, lakes, or dense forest, where they often meet their end. And of course, we also have the drown power. So the will-o'-the-wisp can use its magic to force victims into waters, causing them to drown themselves. Each turn, the players will get an opposed roll, observation versus magic, to get knocked out of this. But mechanically, it means that this attack deals 2 damage, extra for extra successes, until the person succeeds in the opposed roll, is helped by a friend, or dies. Now, each of the Vaesen have a secret listed in the rulebook, and this is an opportunity for the GM to give a little bit of extra hints if the players do well in researching or figuring out what the creature is. So here we have the will-o'-the-wisp power doesn't end with enchantments or luring the unwary to their doom. There is a horrifying secret lurking beneath the swamp's surface. Some who drown at the hands of the will-o'-the-wisp don't simply die, they are cursed to return as spectral slaves bound to the will of their killer for eternity. These spectral beings emit the same eerie green glow as the will-o'-the-wisp, and the spectral slaves become tools for the will-o'-the-wisp's insidious schemes. They basically do everything they can to lure more travelers to their doom, often appearing as ghostly lights in the distance or whispering promises of safety. Occasionally, they can take on human form for brief periods during the night. In this guise, these slaves move among people, spreading false rumors or leading the curious into the marsh. The spectral slaves can be banished, but it's not easy. They are often unaware that their own cursed existence, believing they are alive and acting of their own free will. Breaking this illusion is key for banishing the slaves. This can be done either by a splash of holy water, which reveals their spectral nature, forcing them to confront the truth of their undead state. Or another method is to trick them into eating or drinking. When the food passes through their ghostly bodies and falls to the floor, the realization will hit them that they are no longer alive. There's some great roleplay opportunities here, and the spectral slave adds a tragic layer to the will-o'-the-wisp power. How this might show up in your game is that an NPC, perhaps a guide, a fellow traveler, or even a long-lost friend, helps the party only for the party to discover that this person is one of the will-o'-the-wisp's spectral minions. Will they banish the spectral slave, freeing them from torment, or will they risk being lured into a trap out of misplaced trust? So your players encounter an area where will-o'-the-wisps are causing problems. What do they actually do to take care of them? I mean, they can't just kill them in combat. This is where a ritual can take place. So in the rulebook, it explains the ritual for this is to return the land to its rightful owner. Now, if we're expanding our options for the origins of the will-o'-the-wisp, then I broadened this to mean right the wrong. So there's a bit of flexibility and roleplay on the player's ends to figure out how to actually achieve this. But a few tips to keep in mind for game masters: you can use the will-o'-the-wisp as an environmental threat rather than a direct combatant. Its glowing lantern can lure the party into dangerous terrain or split them up. Use them to build suspense by having NPCs mysteriously disappear or recount eerie tales of glowing lights in the swamps. Or perhaps righting whatever wrong is there may come with a moral dilemma. Who really deserves the land and what sacrifices must be made? For players, avoid traveling alone in areas known for will-o'-the-wisps. These creatures prey on isolation and desperation. If you're enchanted, rely on your allies to help break the spell, and investigate local legends and lands disputes before entering cursed areas. Knowledge is your greatest weapon. The will-o'-the-wisp in Vaesen is more than a simple monster. It's a reflection of human greed and lasting consequences of betrayal. Its haunting presence can challenge players to think critically about morality, justice, and the balance between the living and the dead. Have you ever faced a will-o'-the-wisp in your Vaesen campaign? Share your stories in the comments below. I love hearing about them. And let me know if you like this type of video. I want to do a little bit more lore videos with the role-playing games that I love to play. So let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more of that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.